aspect of things. Obviously, this is going to be more based on, the solar side of things specifically. But yes, that's as Miss Wynn mentioned, that's exactly what it is. All right. And one of the biggest, or before I even jump into that, first thing I'll say is that I've been in the solar industry, as you guys know, for a long time. So I've seen this happen at least twice that I can remember just off the top of my head, right? And the reality is they propose certain things as far as certain, incentives and things of that nature being reduced and eliminated and things of that nature, but they haven't been. Right? The one time when it has happened, I believe the tax credit went from it went from 30%. This was, I think, the most recent one. It went from 30% to 26. So it was either 26 to 22%. And it stayed that way for, I believe, for about 2 months, and then it went right back up. Right. So what we are doing, everyone should give themselves kind of like a pat on the back, because what we're doing here in the solar industry is changing, obviously households all across the country. And we're helping a lot of people. In addition to just helping people save money, the industry overall is helping employ a lot of people as well, right? So we want to really keep that in mind, because when it comes to, like I said, the political side of things and everything like that, obviously those in office want to, keep a lot of jobs. They want people to, to thrive in the marketplace and do well. Well, the solar industry is definitely doing that, right? But to get into the specifics, and like I said, this is going to be an open conversation call, but they're looking to get rid of the 30% federal income tax credit, right? Now, does any and everyone know what that is specifically? That federal tax credit? Who would like to share what that is from their point of view? Any takers?
Yeah, I'll do it, Idris.
All right, Joe, you got it.
So it's my understanding that the 30% tax credit is a tax deduction after you get your solar installed. I believe in the same year that your solar is installed, where you can write off up to 30% of the value of your system. Um, and then I'd heard, and I don't know, maybe you could verify this, but I heard that things you do in conjunction with solar can also be written off. Like I had trees taken down around the house in preparation for solar. I'm getting a new roof put on. So I had heard, I'll have to check with my CPA, but I heard that some of that may qualify to be written off under the 30% deduction as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And but Joe, definitely appreciate that. For those who don't know, Joe is a builder out of the Virginia marketplace, building a fantastic team. I believe hit was it superstar last month. With just growing a big team, getting a lot of deals in, and so on and so forth. So definitely appreciate that, Joe, for sharing. But yes, that's exactly right. So what Joe mentioned once again is that the federal tax credit is a credit you get back for going solar. Once again, 30% overall, right? So that's huge. That's a big deal. This is probably one of the biggest incentives, one of the biggest reasons why a homeowner would want to go solar so far, as most people know it, right? And what Joe also said and mentioned is that you can actually get you can add other home improvements that you're having done, like the roof and having trees cut down. Those can be included in that tax credit as well, right? So this is basically what's on the table. Now, it's funny because as soon as this came out, this is how I processed it, right? Kind of got a little nervous, like, probably most people did. And then I had to really think and analyze, right? Now, I've been in the solar industry maybe about 11 years now. And I had to ask myself, has this happened before? Answer, yes, it has. How did it play out the last one, two, three times it's happened in the past? It's always played out in our favor. So I had to tell myself immediately, don't get nervous, don't get shook up. It is what it is. Secondly, I had to realize that whether the tax credit is here or not, is solar still a good proposition to the homeowner, right? And my response to that was yes, right? Would a homeowner want to have control over their electricity costs instead of dealing with the utility company? Yes. If a homeowner was paying $200 a month today, and then tomorrow they were paying $200 a month with solar, would that still be better? Would the solar option still be better than the utility that's going to continue to increase? Yes, right? Even if homeowners had to buy their systems out cash, right? Now, I know in the US we have a lot of financing options, finance, lease, so many different loans and things of that nature. But in other countries, there are no financing options. There's no leases, right? In the Caribbean, there's no leases. You just have to buy cash. And different parts in, Africa, Nigeria specifically, you have to buy the system cash, right? So we're lucky here that we have that in America. But once again, would it still be a good proposition for a homeowner if they had to buy the system cash? Yes, right? So once I sat on those thoughts, I started to realize that this is not going to be, whether it happens or not, it's not really going to be as bad as most people think, right? So the goal here is to really kind of like focus and what we have in front of us and then just continue to move forward. So right? What does this mean for current clients? So if you're a current client on the line and you have solo already, right? And let's say maybe your system didn't turn on, about to turn on, whatever it may be, this doesn't really affect you because you're grandfathered in to whatever you applied for when you signed the contract, right? So you don't have to worry about, okay, am I going to get the incentives? Am I not going to get the incentives? Once again, for those current clients, you're already grandfathered in, so you're good to go, right? So just want to clear the air for that. But what does this mean for those clients on the fence, right? So obviously, as we have consultations, there's a lot of homeowners who say, you know what? Solar is good, but I need to sit and wait. I want to do it in the summertime. I want to do it in the wintertime. I need to wait. All of the stuff that they say, they're basically just on the fence. Now, what this does for us, right? Everyone on the line is it gives us some motivation to push them on the right side of the fence, right? Because here's the reality. If the bill passes, well, the reality is that next year, right, that 30% that they were going to be able to take advantage of, they won't have anymore. So this is just an incentive for people to do it right now. Now, let me take you back a few years ago when this happened before. There was, like I said, there was the tax credit went from, I believe, 26 to 22%, right? It was proposed. When that happened, there was a surge of deals that came because everyone wanted to get the 26 instead of the 22. Well, how big of a surge do you think there is when people are trying to take advantage of 30 instead of zero? That's a much bigger spread. So the goal here, right? And this is why I say for those clients who are on the fence, you want to really go back and follow up with every client that you have on the fence. Now, here's what a lot of amateurs do, right? And I'm glad I'm talking about this. They will only lead with that. And we have to understand when we speak to clients, they may not know what the big beautiful bill is. They may not know all of the ins and outs of the 30% federal income. They may not know all of that. So we have to make sure we speak their language instead of just speaking our language, right? And I feel like this is important because a lot of people right now, they're just saying, oh yeah, and it's urgency, urgency. Let them know that, the federal tax credit may not be around. But what if you're speaking to a homeowner who, is looking to take advantage of a lease? Well, that 30% doesn't affect them at all. So you now just gave someone, an urgency, you spoke urgency on the situation for them to move forward for something that doesn't even really apply to them. And this is why I'm saying you want to make sure that we speak their language and not ours, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So when we're speaking to people on the fence, what we want to do is we just want to give them a normal call. Hey, John, right? I'm just giving you a call back. I know we spoke about solar in the past, but what I want to do now, there's some incentives, that you can take advantage of. And I want to just make sure that you can still qualify and that we can still take advantage of them before time runs out. When can we book another appointment? That's it. right? You don't need to go into detail. You don't need to, scare someone into it, but you do want to have some urgency in your voice, but you don't want to kind of try to explain all of this, over the phone. Uh, for most people, if you don't understand the big, beautiful bill, then you don't want to explain something that you don't understand to somebody else who may not understand it either, because then it just creates a lot of big confusion, right? So once again, we want to handle it like professionals and just get them on the phone or get them, I should say, in a consultation. Now, this is for the people who are on the fence. What does this mean for you, for us, for all of us on the line, right? I would highly recommend taking a look at all of the clients that you've had over the past year, and now is the time I wanted to say strike, and that doesn't sound like we're in the woods, hunting or something. But hopefully you get my point. Right now is the time to actually follow up with all of those clients, right? Because the reality is, not only is it the tax credit and everything like that, but it's also summertime. I know you guys hear this all of the time, right? Or spring now, it's about to be summer. But people's bills usually go up in this time. So most people, their ears are a little bit more open to what you have to say. And when it comes to savings, just naturally around this time of the year. So with a combination of the big, beautiful bill, with a combination of the rates naturally going up, right? Once again, those in the Northeast, if you when you get your electricity from Canada, you know the tariffs and things like that have already affected those electricity bills, right? So if all of this combination of things all happening all at once, this is like the perfect storm for people in the solar industry to help as many other homeowners as possible. But that's only going to take place if we communicate with people, right? If we're nervous, if we're not confident, if we're unsure, and we're going into the marketplace, tippy-toeing instead of charging forward, then you're going to have tippy-toe results, right? I can easily say this. There's people out here who are waiting for you to call. Every time I speak to a homeowner, I would say 95% don't really know and or understand how solar works. It's our job to educate them, right? But we can't educate people who we can't get into a consultation with. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about me. This call is for all of well, it's for everybody, obviously. But it's for, it's a specific level two and above call for those who are looking to close your own deals and even those, who aspire to be mentors as well. But for all of us, the goal is to get in front of as many people as we can to speak to more people so we can just educate them on the process. Now, with that being said, some people are going to move forward. Some people are going to take advantage of it. Some people are not, right? You don't want to get into a combative situation where you're uh, uh, talking down to people, right? As far as, oh, listen, you don't understand. This is this is taking place. You got to do it. You got to do it. If you don't do it, you're dumb. Now, I know none of us on the call are going to do that. However, I've heard this from other people, and it baffles me that those type of conversations would even take place. But it's a reality, and I just want to, kind of mention that. So that's what I would say. That's what it really means for us is a huge opportunity for us within the next couple of months. And I like to kind of tie this up with, obviously, as we're all in bill, I like to tie this up with things that we already have going on, right? So as we all know, we're in June, this is the last month of the second quarter. As we move into July, right? That's the brand new third quarter of the year, right? Second half, basically. The convention, the international convention, is going to be taking place probably towards the end of August, maybe somewhere in September, right? And that falls right in alignment of the end of the third quarter, right? So we have like this real strong window to push and to push hard to take advantage of the seasonality of solar, right? In addition to all of the incentives and things like that as well. Now, in addition to what this means for us, also, let's say things do change, right? Uh, all that means is that once again, there's no more 30. percent federal income tax credit. It has nothing to do with the leases and the PPAs, right? Those options are still available to people. Once again, when the pandemic first hit, a lot of people obviously, naturally, didn't want to take out loans. However, guess what happened during the pandemic? A lot of people started now working from home. So what do you think happened with their electricity bill? Started to increase up. So once again, another perfect storm, right? People don't want to take advantage of loans naturally, and that makes sense. However, there was a lot of people now taking advantage of the lease. To be honest, in my experience, the lease is a much easier product to explain and just go over, right? It's kind of simple, it's basic, right? But most people can get that. The finance is a little more, it's a little more complex, and you're dealing with taxes, and not everyone knows their tax situation right off the top of their hand. So sometimes it can get a little shaky. However, the lease option is still a great option that homeowners can take advantage of. So if things do change, that will probably be a go-to. In addition to that, right? Freedom Forever, I believe JC mentioned that we'll have Brent Brushy, the son of the CEO of Freedom, talking on one of next week's calls. I forget which one. But it's good to be in alignment with the company that when these changes take place, they will start to make changes as well, right? Now, there's one thing for a company to when a change like this go out of business, right? Because that happens, and that happens with companies who, let's say, only make their money on one option and one option alone. Let's just say they just had the finance option. But when you have a company like Freedom that are very innovative, very flexible, very forward thinking, kind of getting ahead of the situation, then there's going to naturally be some changes. I know there was a few consultations that I've had over the week where, I went through the proposal and the mentee was like, whoa, that looks different. Right? We didn't talk about that. Like, what's going on there? So there's already been changes, right, that have already taken place. And this kind of just goes to show how fast some of the, how fast freedom works. So those things like that will change. But there'll also be other products and other services, I'm sure, that will adjust to the market, that we'll be able to take advantage of as well, right? So as I mentioned, if things change, we know what options we have. If things don't change, here's the thought process you want to have. You still want to act with urgency now. I want you all to think about this. If you knew over the next 6 months that this was the best solar was ever going to be, how hard would you push it? Right? Not for your own pocket, right? Once again, there's a lot of products here for us to make money with, right? So I'm not talking about from a profitability standpoint. That's always good, but more from a standpoint of helping people. If you knew that this was going to be the best it was going to be, how hard would you push it, right? How many more people would you talk to? And I'm specific, I don't want to say that, I'm not specifically, but for those people who already have solar, who are benefiting from solar, who understand the benefits, right? Who are seeing the monthly benefits, who are seeing the monthly savings, right? I have a client, he's on the team. I'm not going to say his name. Let me see if he's on the call. No, he's not on the call, but I get almost a monthly phone call from him of thanks and praise of how much money he's saving compared to what he was paying before. And when he got his tax credit back, there was another like hallelujah dance and whole conversation and talk because he was so happy and excited that everything we went through it actually played out to fruition. Right. So once again, solar is helping and blessing a lot of people. So if it was as good as it is today, and you knew for the next 6 months, it was going to be this good and it was only going to get worse afterwards, how hard will we push? And that's the mindset that we want to have between now and the end of the year, right? Now, this is another thought, and I'm glad I'm actually thinking about this now. Ideally, the deals need to be installed before the end of the year for them to take advantage of the tax credit. Let's say the bill passes, and the bill, passes, and they say in 2026 it's eliminated. Well, ideally, keyword ideally, all right? Now I have seen some things happen and, I've seen some people work around this, right? But ideally the deal needs to be installed before the end of the year, right? Not signed, right? Ideally. So, what that means is that once again, let me ask, how long is an average deal take to get installed? Just see if someone can help me out with that.
Maybe between 60 and 90 days, depending upon the location. It could be
Absolutely.
short, it could be shorter, it could be longer.
Absolutely. Right? It's perfect. So the reality is, if it's going to take, 2 to 3 months for it to get installed, when do we need to speak with people to make sure that they get installed?
Well, really also depend on the time of year because once it gets close to the winter months again in the fall, you're gonna get a lot more rain, and they're not gonna install in those fall and winter months. So
That's another really good point.
that time really is now.
That's another from Mr. Butler, who's solar pro in Tennessee. Right? So yes, that's another very good point. The reality is to when the closer you get to the fall and the winter time, the weather starts to change when installs take place, right? It's just natural. We can't do anything about that. Just for safety reasons, we're not going to install a solar system in the rain or in the snow or when it's freezing, or anything like that when it's extremely windy. So, with that being said, the best time to kind of like focus on getting homeowners to see the information would be now, right? And we all know the processes as far as how to, get the, peak interest, get the bill, book the appointment. We're not gonna go, this is not the call for that specifically. But it is the call just to have urgency so we can, maximize on what we have. And here's the beautiful thing. If it passes, it's great. The solar industry, as you probably have all seen, is evolving. It's going to evolve whether this happens or not. But if it doesn't get passed, once again, the solar industry is still going to evolve, right? If we use the urgency now and it doesn't change, well, we just helped a lot of people take advantage of it now. It happens, right? And it's always a good situation. So that's basically everything. I'm gonna put some resources in the chat for everyone to see. Just some resources that you guys can listen to from the CEO of Freedom. Um, and hear the podcast that he did recently. But I'll open it up for any thoughts, any questions that anyone may have before we close it out. Just wanted to share my thoughts about that with everyone.
Mr. Alaka,
Yes, sir.
the scenario I had also with my solar install here in Memphis, the solar team came and did everything they needed to do. Being that the utility company that's no longer going to be getting all my money, they dragged their butts on coming out to approve the install. Until I went over 6-7 months waiting for them to okay and sign off on that everything was connected correctly. It got to the point where they were giving me a credit on the monthly bills that I had started making monthly payments. So to caveat and piggyback on how long it takes, is best the time is of the essence because they can drag their foot around, coming around and sign off and okay on the work that was done, the code and everything working properly and safely put together.
Thinking about going so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off, did I?
Somebody else said something.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. And the beautiful thing about Freedom is that they not rush. I don't want to say rush their jobs, but they do expedite things to the best of their ability sometimes, in most cases. Sometimes, it is normal. It takes a little longer, but in most cases, a lot of jobs move through the system pretty quick. Right. There's a job or two that I closed out in North Carolina about a week ago. maybe a week or two ago, and it's already ready for install now, right? So obviously this depends on the area. Different areas have different install time frames, but for everyone, I just put the link in the chat for you all to take a look at. And once again, this is not to, cause doom and gloom or to make anyone more nervous, whatever than they already are. This is just for you to be informed, right? The more informed we are as, builders, telling people about the solar industry, then the more you can craft your conversation with your clients in ways that make sense instead of kind of being unsure when speaking to them, right? So this is more of why I'm taking this approach and sharing this information with everyone. Any other thoughts, questions before we close out?
Hey, yeah,
Y-
this is Laura Johnson, Mr. Alaka.
Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for, sharing this information with us and sharing it with that perspective. I really appreciate it. I am a solar customer. I had my solar installed last October. It took the process took a little bit longer than 3 months for me because of factors outside of the control. You always share with us that this is construction, and as we know with construction, anything can happen. If you remodel your kitchen, anything can happen. But what I'm excited about is the fact that I went through the process. I was patient through the process, and this month my bill was $49. So you can't beat that with a stick. So solar works. It's powerful. I'm here in the Carolinas, so we get summer storms. So we get horrible storms here in the summertime, hurricanes and thunderstorms. And so, we could be delayed for even though it's great weather. But, I'm really excited because when I look at my app, man, I'm sending power back to the to the grid.
Mm.
So I'm excited about solar, and we need to work with urgency because we are actually helping people. And that should be our foremost thought. A lot of the people that I'm a level 2 right now, and a lot of people that I share, they're not even interested in the tax credit because they are not in a position to take advantage of it anyway.
Mm.
So, there's a large percentage of people that it's not going to impact at all. So we can't allow, something to get out of perspective. So I just want to say thank you once again for sharing this information, and, let's go, let's build.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And definitely appreciate you sharing that as well. And just for context, I know you mentioned that your new bill is about $49, you said, right?
Yes, sir. It's $49. And I live in rural South Carolina. So I have a what we call a pole light in my yard.
Mm-hmm.
So $16 of that is for the pole light. Okay. $1 is for sustainable energy. So almost half of the $49 is for something that's not related to my electricity at all.
And,
So
and what
yeah.
was your bill prior to solar?
Oh, I was on level billing 12 months a year, and every year it was going up. And my level billing was $250.
Got it. Got it. And I wanted to point that out real quick because that's a lesson in itself. I know, sometimes people will that when they explain solar, they'll say, well, my new bill was only $49, right? Not explaining what it was prior, right? So to some people's ears, that may not sound like a benefit until you tell them, well, my bill prior was 250.
Right.
250 to now 49. Okay, now people see the difference. You know what I mean? So definitely something to, keep in mind as well when sharing that. But that's a great testimonial, and I greatly appreciate that as well. So thank you. Absolutely. Anyone else like to share or have any other specific thoughts or questions about anything?
To piggyback on what she said about things can happen, prior to me getting solar in my house, the sun was being blocked by a tree, so I had to have trees cut down prior to getting solar. That cost me a couple $1,000. So those roadblocks do come up. And like I said, time's of the essence to where they're gonna have to remove that tree before they even start the solar. Because they had to remove a tree, almost 2 trees before they could say, okay, yeah, we'll install it.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate you sharing that as well. And there was something else Ms. Johnson mentioned that I wanted to touch on. So I know Ms. Johnson mentioned that a lot of the clients that she speaks to, uh, they wouldn't even qualify for the incentives, right? So with that being said, since the 30%, let's focus on that, the 30%, it so for the lease and the PPA, it's not a part of that program. However, those incentives don't go to the client, they go to the company, right? Because that 30% federal tax credit goes to the company, that's what reduces the cost on the lease. Does that make sense? So it's gonna affect those in, finance, no matter what option you take. But it's just rearranging how it's going. So to elaborate a little bit more on that, will the lease and PPA still be beneficial to homeowners? Yes, of course. As that was a question I asked earlier, right? Well, if a homeowner was paying $200 a month to a ABC utility company, but now they're paying $200 to Freedom Forever, which one would be better? Well, the Freedom Forever bill probably wouldn't increase, where ABC company will continue going up. That's the benefit. That in itself is a selling proposition for any homeowner to decide to go solar. That in itself. This is no incentives. This is nothing else. This is not clean energy. Just that alone would be a good reason for a homeowner to go solar. And chances are it's not going to be a bill swap. The bill for solar would probably be a little bit lower. It may not be as much, but if it went from 200 to 175, once again, that's still a good thing, right? Yes, Miss One.
So in some states, they don't have the leasing and the PPA options, right? So it's either cash or loan, right?
Hmm.
So when it comes to that, I'm thinking about the client that you and I worked with earlier, one of the clients that you and I worked with earlier this year.
Hmm.
That if I'm correct, that state is only a loan or cash state, correct? So how does that impact with the legislation?
Hmm.
Say that person decides that they want to continue to wait. How does that going to impact them? And thank you for allowing me to share.
Absolutely. And this goes right back to what I was mentioning earlier as far as the industry evolving. Right. So I think in some of those states where leases and PPAs aren't available now, if the laws did change, that would probably start to change as well. Right. It would only be advantageous for the solar companies to now open up business in those areas. Right. Because right now yeah, there could be a variety of different reasons of why a state may not have the lease or PPA option. But if those bills passed, I'm very confident that it would open up in some of those other states. And just to mention, you brought up another thought. So we're only really talking about the federal income tax credit, which is 30%. We also have to remember that in some states, there's other incentives. There's state incentives, right? So I know in South Carolina, right? There is Ms. Johnson, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it 5,000 or is it 25%?
25%.
25%.
Yes.
Right? So if the 30% leaves, well, the South Carolina specifically has a 25% tax incentive, right? And also if the bill did pass, then some of these other states probably will pick up on that as well. May not happen instantly, but once again, this is what I mean when I say that the industry would start to evolve, right? For homeowners in New York City specifically, there's a 30% federal tax credit. There's a 5,000 tax state tax credit, there's a 30% property tax abatement, and then there's another NYSERDA rebate. So all of those incentives in total equal up to about 75% of the solar job. Now, once again, that's in New York City specifically, right? So if New York City, if they lose the 30%, well, there's still another 45% left, so it's still a lot. It's still a benefit for a homeowner to go solar. So this is why I say it's not going to be doom and gloom, right? It's just a different approach. And on all of the consultations, and I'll ask Joe if he can, just speak on this briefly. But my approach is not necessarily from the saving side, from the month to month basis. It's more from the overall, the bigger picture, right? When people look at solar, in most cases, they look at the monthly payment. And yes, I get it. It may change from time to time. But the bigger picture, if someone's going to be paying, let's say, $100,000 over the next 25 years, but they can see with solar, they're now only going to be paying 55,000. Obviously, that's kind of like a no-brainer, right? In most cases, people would be okay with paying a little bit more to know they were going to be paying less overall, right? In most cases. And this is how it may need to be presented moving forward, instead of speaking to people just about savings today, right? Because obviously, as we know, solar is an investment, right? And it's more of a long-term investment. But once again, these are all thoughts and ideas if things change, right? But I wanted to at least put it out there because some people are trying to, hide from the conversation. They don't want to talk about it. And they're being kind of quiet about it. Well, the reality is that the more as a group, mentor, mentee, level two, it doesn't matter. If you're in the dark, that's not a good situation, right? You need to know what's happening, what's going on, and kind of how to get in front of it. So you can be as educated as possible. So now we can put our clients in the best way, in the best position to be educated as well. Yes, Miss Wen.
So I was just thinking about like some of the, speaking of New York City, I'm thinking about like some of the brownstones
Mhm.
that, a single house may have been broken up into like apartments and things of that nature. So how, how to have that conversation with someone who's an owner of a 5-story brownstone house that is basically apartments, to have that solar conversation with that person. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I think anything over a 4-unit house would now be considered a commercial. I believe it's 4 or 6, but I think it's 4. Um, yeah, anything over 4 units would be considered a commercial, right? But I just got a new lead of referral maybe about an hour ago. And it was from a homeowner in the city who is a 3-family house. So it's the same conversation, right? When I speak to homeowners who have multiple units in one house, same conversation. Do you want to go solar for 1 unit or do you want to go solar for both? Right? And if they want to go solar for both, I'm saying it's slightly different in New York. We could combine the meters, but yeah, it's a regular same conversation, right? I usually propose that for people who have multiple um, units on the same property, is that it's always best when you're dealing with, family, friends, people as far as, turning that property into a solar property. Sometimes when you're dealing with people you don't know, strangers, then sometimes they tend to abuse the electricity usage once they now know that they may not be paying for it, right? But if it's, family, people or, like a close knit, situation, then yeah, it's always a good situation to go solar, right? And also, if you have a rental unit and you put solar on that rental unit, then whatever that bill is, you can just put into the monthly rent as well. So I always like to tell people this when I speak to investors all of the time. I love explaining that when they now turn their property, when their property now goes solar, they now become the utility company, right? So now you're in charge. Now you don't have to charge your tenant increasing rates, right? You can put it at a set rate and you can just charge them what you or they may be comfortable with, instead of it continuing to go up. That in itself is an ideal reason of how to keep your tenant in your property, right? Or it could be one of the benefits, I should say. Hopefully that answered your question.
It does. I just need to figure out how to approach this particular person. We'll talk. Thank you, Idris, for that.
For sure, no problem. Anyone else? Any other questions, thoughts, concerns at all before we close out?
You just had a couple
Hey, Mr.
questions. Oh.
Yep. Yep, Joe.
Well, just to piggyback on what you were saying earlier, when the news started coming out about the changes, you had told us to start looking at the long-term savings as opposed to the short-term savings, and that's been really helpful, because even if the payment's slightly more over 25 years, the savings are still very substantial. So I've been tweaking my approach in that manner, so that has been very helpful. My question was, is the commission for a lease comparable to the commission for a purchase agreement? Because it seems that the leases currently are a better deal than the purchase agreements anyway. As far as like the monthly payment, over the last week, a lot of the purchase agreements have come out, or the loans have come out higher, like substantially higher, compared to the current electric and lease. So to me, it almost seems like the lease is the better option for most people.
That's a great point, and I'm gonna show you guys another behind the scenes session of the uh of the rates, right? So that is a great question, but that question depends on the state, right? So let's find exactly what I mean, right? So for instance, let's just say Connecticut, right? So you guys see these lines here, right? I mean this line here. So Mosaic, and we're only going to use two finance options. We're going to use Mosaic for this example. Mosaic and then Good Leap, right? So let's say we had a client in Connecticut and they wasn't the ideal candidate for the finance, which is Mosaic, but they were a good candidate for the lease with Good Leap, right? Well, is it comparable? It could be, but as you see, the price for this Good Leap deal would be a little bit higher than the finance deal. So in this state, it may not be as beneficial to go with the lease than it would be for the finance. And I'm just using that state and these two, Good Leap and Mosaic, right? Obviously, as you can see, there's other leasing finance companies to use. But let's see. And Georgia is, yeah, in Georgia here, right? You see Mosaic Finance is a little bit higher than Good Leap Lease, right? So in this situation would be a little bit better. So my point is, it depends on the state and it depends on the situation. Now I know we're getting a chance to look at these numbers and see what they are today. This has changed 3 times in the last week, right? So as the market changes, so do numbers, right? As the company needs to adjust, right? So for instance, Joe, right? This is why with the client that we had the other day, Mick, there was an option that we didn't have in the moment, and then literally an hour or two later, an option appeared out of the blue because the rates changed and the options changed for that state, right? And I was able to, put it together, so on and so forth. So for instance, in Virginia, where he was, this wasn't available, I don't know, 3, 4 days ago, right? It was only with Everbright, right? So I had to get the account for Everbright, but then literally it switched back to Goodleap. So anyway, I don't want to confuse you guys. My thing is that my point is that things change very often. And to answer your question, Joe, it's just based on the state and the price. The baseline price that the deal is being sold at, which varies from place to place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really helpful to kind of see like the back office, to see like the overview, so you have a little bit of an idea of which way to maybe put it together. I mean, ultimately, it's going to be on like what the client is looking for, as far as the tax deduction or not. But it seems that if one option is substantially less than the other, that may be the way to to lead with them. Um, but yeah, that's really helpful. Do you also get do you have to individually? Sorry, my dog's getting bored here. um, do you also individually have, like, for the state credits? Is there a place where that pops up, or do you have to like say, oh, they're in South Carolina, I need to Google the state credits to see what they
They're
are?
trying to deposit money. It keeps
Let me
getting their money
let
back
me
out.
see something. Let me check. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna be able to see it here. Let me check. I'll show you guys where I'm looking because there's a specific place where it shows it. Let me see. Now, yeah, there's a specific place that it shows in a deal. Let's find a deal. This is in Colorado. Let's see. Do I have another one in a different state? No. Okay. So yeah, I'll just show you where it shows it in the deal. Um, uh, there is a sheet there is a sheet that kind of shows what, but you would have to look through a lot of information to see. So I kind of use the proposal to check, and when looking to answer your question as far as the other incentives, there should be a list right here that shows. Okay, so for this, what state is this? I think this was Virginia, I believe. So in Virginia, they only have this tax credit, I believe, only the 30%. So usually if there's other tax credits, then there would be a list of them right here, right? But in Virginia, it's only the 30%. So this is where I check on each deal in the proposal. It just makes it a little easier for me. Hopefully that answers your question as well. Because obviously working with so many different states, it can be confusing kind of checking for each one. So I always check in the deal so I know how to present it to the client, if that makes sense. Right. So yeah, it shows it on in the proposal. In the proposal is a place that shows what incentives are available for that client in that state based on what options you choose. Right. Any great questions? Any other questions from anyone before we jump?
I got I got
Yeah.
a question. It's not pertaining to solar, but I think we answered it a while back. But
Mhm.
I may have a client that needs a roof. So don't they do just roofs only, even if they don't need or want solar? The company.
Yes, yeah. So there was roofing a component to build, but yeah, most of the time we do roofs with the solar project, right? If the client is looking to benefit off of the doing the roof and taking advantage of that tax credit, whatever the tax credits are, then yes, it'll be best for them to do it together instead of separately. But yes, there is that component as well. Any other thoughts, questions at all? All right. Hopefully this was helpful to everyone. Once again, I would highly recommend everyone take a look at the chat, the link in the chat to get a chance to see that interview. I believe it's about 17 minutes, it's not too long, but it'll just give you a different perspective and hearing from the CEO of Freedom Forever directly on just his mindset of, where we are and what this bill may mean to us moving forward. What I'll say is over the past 10 years of me being in the solar industry has done a lot of great things, not just for myself, but for a lot of people all over the country, right? As far as the homeowners specifically, it's helped a lot of people save a lot of money. and it stabilized a lot of homeowners' bills, right? So the thought of them changing that and doing a disservice to just the citizens across the country, I can't really see that really happening. However, we live in different times where things can happen, right? However, definitely look forward to no matter what the changes are, continuing to move forward, add more value, help more homeowners, and continue to do good work, right? I want to say the Lord's work, but yeah, just continue to do good work and continue to push forward. So I appreciate everyone jumping on. A lot of great questions, and hopefully I gave a lot of great answers as well. And I know we have the was Millionaire Mentorship call coming up in about an hour or so. So we get a chance to take a little break and get prepared for that. So definitely look forward to helping and assisting everyone that I can. Hope everyone has a great night and look forward to speaking to you all soon.
Thank you, Idris.
No problem. Take care. Have a great night.
Thank you.